Ahoy, peace and blessings, welcome back. Today I'm reminding you guys of 2 command words that you can use to protect your energy, protect your spirit, or protect your vibration. A lot of times spirits and other entities in other realms, other angels, other demons are trying to interact with us, are trying to give us energy, are trying to make us notice something that we don't notice, or are trying to bring our attention somewhere that it is currently not. Sometimes this can be very beneficial, right? An entity, a spirit, an angel, a demon even, could be trying to warn you about some other negative spirit, or it could be trying to warn you about your outside environment. But a lot of us are very heightened, very aware, very spiritually mature already. We have a lot of things under control. We're comfortable in our own energy, we're comfortable in our own spirit. We don't necessarily need that much help, right? A lot of times other spirits are asking us for help, asking us for advice. You get what I mean? It can play out either good or bad, just depending on the day, just depending on how you're currently feeling, what you're currently going through. We have a lot to worry about. We're busy in the 3D realm, but these command words are I deny and I allow. The etymology of allow is to commend, praise, approve of, be pleased with, appreciate the value of, also take into account or give credit for. Also in law and philosophy, recognize, claim it as valid, a privilege, an excuse, a statement, permit, condone, dealing with expenses as allowance, to place, situate, arrange, allot, apportion, bestow, assign, allocate. You can start saying these words aloud. You can say them out loud, you can say them in your head. You could make some affirmations. What do you allow into your life, right? A lot of times angels are trying to help us, but our own emotional state, emotions get real deep. A lot of times our own energy is preventing help from the universe, truthfully. God may be trying to bless you in some way, but you can deny it, right? You can ignore it, right? So you can start saying the words I allow. Allow that positive energy into your life, allow that help into your life, right? Allow those things that are beneficial. Every day angels are trying to help you, so start saying I allow, because we all are trying to work on ourselves. We're all trying to ascend more. We're all trying to be more peaceful, be stronger, right? Be wiser, right? But I've reached this point, I realize, there's certain angels, certain other divine energies that are just so different from me. A lot of times I'll ignore them or I'll deny them accidentally. You get what I mean? So just start saying allow, say I allow God to do this. I allow God to bless me. I allow these angels to help me, right? I allow my spirit guides to help me. I allow my spirit guides to do whatever they're planning to do. The numerology of allow is 9, right? The numerology of I is 9. You get what I mean? So 9 is 9 again. So if you're into numerology and stuff like that, that means something to you. You get what I mean? Start saying I allow. Also start saying deny. Sometimes these evil spirits will want your attention, will be begging you to do things, you get what I mean, in the astral realm, want your energy, want your time. Start saying deny. When your vibration is good, you're in a good state of mind, you don't want to change how you are currently at this current time, start saying I deny. These demons, these wicked spirits in the background want to affect you. Use those command words. The etymology of deny is to declare to be untrue or untenable, to withhold, reject, refuse, no, not, refuse to grant or give, refuse to acknowledge, disown, refuse access to. Okay, you can use these command words to disown these negative energies. You can use these command words to allow these positive energies, right, to manifest these positive energies, right? Because remember, you are God. You can tell these angels what to do. You can tell these demons what to do. Right, that's in your authority, that's in your power. All right, truly we're the son and daughter of God, right? But God wants us to become God. God wants us to mature, spiritually speaking and physically speaking. So start using your higher power, start using your command words. Realize I can control these angels. I can allow these angels, you get what I mean? I can control these demons, I can deny these demons. Whatever energy comes into your life, you get what I mean, human or spiritual, you can allow these things or you can deny these things. The numerology of deny is 3. If that means something to you. Right? You may be surprised how many angels are actually here to help you. Some people have literally thousands of angels trying to help them, right? New angels every day trying to help them, right? But you may not have a personal relationship with them. You may not have a close relationship with them. right? Really, you may not see them, you may not hear them, you get what I mean, but they are there. So just start saying, I allow. You get what I mean? It's way easier to trust angels than it is demons, right? Just by their nature, right? Especially if you're dealing with like mental illnesses, bipolar and things of that nature. You get what I mean? Your mood can switch really fast, you know. Remember, you know, it's not just you in this life, you know, there's a bunch of other spirits, you know, it's your real environment, who you're around, who you're living with, right? But also there's thousands, millions of angels, right? Thousands and millions of demons, you get what I mean? So start allowing them into your life and start denying them from your life. And when you're really feeling super negatively, you're really down in the dumps, you get what I mean? Remember, you still have angels helping you. You get what I mean? Start saying, I allow. And when you are in a good mood, but all of a sudden you start feeling bad, you get what I mean? You start feeling depressed, right? You start feeling negative, right? Start saying, I deny. You know, that's probably another spirit coming into your energy, affecting your energy. You get what I mean? There's very powerful angels, there's very powerful demons, right? But we are God, right? We are really stronger than these angels. We're really stronger than these demons, right? But we have to wake up to our own power. We have to recognize how much power has been granted to us and how much God has blessed us with. I remember Jesus called himself a teacher, right? Teachers give tests. All right, a lot of this universe is about testing you, testing your spirit, testing your soul. You know, you may pass the test, you may fail the test, right? Every time you pass a test, you're going to get stronger and stronger, spiritually speaking, right? You're going to get closer and closer to God. Realize that you have the power. Realize that you have all the power in the world. You have all the power that you need. You know, you have the power to manifest the life you want. You have the power over your emotions. You get what I mean? Sometimes our emotions are just flowing one way and it's really good, but then it might branch off into something else, into a negative aspect, right? Start saying, I deny. You get what I mean? I don't want to go down that path, right? I deny. I don't want to work with this demon right now. I deny. You know, I could try to convert this demon. I could try to help this demon, this lower spirit, this negative human. But, you know, if that's not a good time for you right now, you get what I mean? Say, I deny. I don't want to do that right now. You get what I mean? I deny. I refuse. I realize you have a lot of angels under your command. You have a lot of angels working with you. You get what I mean? Start saying, I allow. You know, you might not have any reason to be happy in the physical realm. You get what I mean? Things could be going really bad. You could have lost your job, your partner, an opportunity, etc., right? But you still have that right to be happy. You still have that right to be clear-headed, right? You still have that right to be God, you know, and angels know this. You get what I mean? Start saying, I allow. You know, don't refuse yourself. Don't refuse your opportunities. Don't refuse your own power, right? I is 9, and deny is 3, which is 12, which is 3 again. You get what I mean? So that 3 number is very important, very powerful. You know, 9 is very powerful, very important. You know, dealing with the Trinity, dealing with completion, dealing with divine energy, right? A lot of times demons will give you a hard lesson, right? You'll still grow from it, get stronger from it, still progress. You know, you can still pass that test, right? Demons will give you a hard test, right? A negative test. You can still pass that and get stronger. You get what I mean? But I know we're not in the mood to do that all the time, right? Angels will give you an easy test. You give me a positive test, right? But you can still fail those tests as well. You get what I mean? You don't want to be failing your angel tests. You know, those are like the easy ones. Those are the gimme ones. You get what I mean? Don't fail your angel tests. You know, start saying I allow. You know, angels are really there to help you. You get what I mean? You're taking some tests. The answers are just going to be super easy. You get what I mean? Those are like angel tests, right? Those are like the angel questions. You get what I mean? You're taking tests. Some questions are just going to be super easy. You know, those are the angel questions. Some questions are going to be very difficult. You get what I mean? Those are the demon tests, right? And you can get these right, you get these wrong. You know, that just depends on your own spiritual growth. You get what I mean? How much power do you deserve? How much power can you fit in your hand, right? How loving are you? How graceful are you? How powerful are you, right? How in tune with your emotions are you in your mind? You know, but you're never alone in this life. You have a lot of angels, you have a lot of demons, you have a lot of spirit gods, right? You have God, right? You have ancestors, right? So start saying, I allow, you know, I allow my ancestors to do that. You get what I mean? Because once you realize you're God, you know, a lot of spirits will start asking you for permission to do things. You know, angels will really ask you for permission. You know, do you really want to experience this? And it may be difficult to you, depending on your nature. Maybe you're more aligned with that demon side of you, or it could be easy. You know, it could be easy or hard, just depending on you, right? Me personally, a lot of times angels will bless me, and it'll just be so easy, right? But in my life, you know, everything is always so difficult, so hard. You know, I always got to try so hard. I always got to be on my lone wolf energy, right? But angels will be like, here, it's easy. Like, this is so easy for us. Like, and this is your power too. You know, this is our power we're giving to you. You know, so take this easy road. You get what I mean? And other people have the opposite. You get what I mean? They're aligned with that angel energy, right? But those demonic tests, right? You You know, you shouldn't be murdering, right? Are you going to keep murdering these demons? You know, you're really feeling the test here. You get what I mean? You have the power to convert them. Why would you, right, kill them? You have the power to change them, right? You could even just send them to prison. You don't got to kill them. You get what I mean? How peaceful are you? How loving are you, right? How forgiving are you, right? You worship the God of forgiveness. You know, a lot of times we got to forgive these spirits. You get what I mean? But I understand sometimes it's hard. You know, we're still in the 3D. We're still in the flesh. You know, we still have real life going on. But these power words hopefully will make your life easier. You know, that's my intention. You know, start saying out loud. You know you have those positive spirits working with you 24/7. Just start saying out loud through the middle of the day. You know what I mean? You know you have these evil spirits trying to work with you as well. You know, start saying I deny. When you're not in that mood, you get what I mean? You're not trying to do that every day. Maybe you're one of those people, you're not trying to do it ever. You get what I mean? Just start saying I deny. But peace and blessings. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time, peace.